to lead into a bit of the nuance of visualized value is I didn't need 1,000 people to believe in it for it to work. I needed to find 5 people a year that were interested in hiring me as a consultant, and I was posting stuff on the internet. And even if you have 50 followers on Instagram, you're getting a few dozen impressions a day, right? So it's easier than going and knocking on 36 doors a day, even if you have a minuscule following.
The internet is notoriously fickle, and the attention spans shift all the time. How have you managed to continue doing this and continue creating and continue capturing that intention from people? Like, how do you do this? And I know you're in the kind of, I suppose, not the latter, but in the later part of Visualize Value, you've been doing a lot of education work and a lot of teaching people how to do this. And so it's not so much just about creating the posts, it's about the whole philosophy behind it. Mm-hmm. How do you maintain that attention span, which is almost kind of the reward for building the brand, but it's also the poison chalice, because if it slips away, it can elude you for the rest of time?
And Visualize Value was taking ideas that I could find anywhere. So I didn't need a client to make these things. I could pick a book up off the shelf or go and read an article that someone had written that is talking about something I'm interested in, turn that into this visual asset. And I think all of the corporate and brand training kicked in, where it's like, just pick a style and stick to it, and make a creative constraint will be born out of those decisions, rather than you spending 80% of the time picking typefaces and textures and color and all of those decisions that eat up hours, essentially. I think it's one, there's like an element of luck to it, because I think I stumbled into something that really gives me constraints that work very harmoniously with the things that I am actually interested in. So I really like the process of trying to decode the idea, like mess around with the logic of the idea and just convey it. So those constraints are actually incredibly helpful for that. And they the reward increases with time, because you're able to continuously prove that the constraints you've chosen have legs, as opposed to me giving up on these constraints and, adding some maybe arbitrary new visual device or broadening the scope of tools that I use to produce visuals. Actually sort of dilutes the power of the rest of the library of stuff. To lead into a bit of the nuance of Visualize Value is I didn't need 1,000 people to believe in it for it to work. I needed to find 5 people a year that were interested in hiring me as a consultant. And I was posting stuff on the internet. And even if you have 50 followers on Instagram, you're getting a few dozen impressions a day, right? So it's easier than going and knocking on 36 doors a day, even if you have a minuscule following. Talking specifically to, or maybe not necessarily just creative people, but anybody who building a brand by producing content is going to have there's upside to you, regardless of whether or not anyone sees it or interacts with it.
I mean, I can speak from our experience at Nicework. The more we've put out there, the more videos we've created, the more podcasts we've created, the more interviews we've done, the more webinars we've produced, the more videos we've made, the more articles we've written. We're getting clearer and clearer in our thoughts. We're getting better at articulating them. The more you tackle an idea and the more you try and own something and invest time in it and explore it from all different angles, you start to notice it around you in the world. And there's just so much more there. Can you just, I suppose, as a last question, how do you gather the content? How do you continuously do this? Because, it's easy to have 5 good ideas and execute them, but then now you've got to do another 5 and another 5. And then, 5 years later, 6 years later, you need to be on idea number 300 or idea number 400. How do you keep filling that pipeline of inspiration?
The act of decoding the idea and putting it through this puzzle constraint is the thing that I really love. So that maybe this will happen. It hasn't yet, but maybe one day I'll wake up and say, I don't want to do black and white visuals anymore. But right now it feels like there's an endless stream of content to put through that filter, and then that actually comes back in its own sort of little reward system, and like the additional equity that you get from solving another puzzle using just these tools. So part luck and part like leaning into that, I think is that's a huge accelerant to the consistency too. Because even if if I'm reading a book and I read a line, I'm like, oh, that's great. I want to visualize that. The lift is so much less significant than someone that has to go and sit down at a blank canvas, for instance. Like you're walking into a workshop and you have 3 tools, as opposed to, you look at the wall and there's 100 different power tools. You're like, where the hell do I even start with this thing? So almost accidentally, those constraints created this feedback loop that, you get healthily addicted to.
The power of consistency, and how just going at something and tackling it again and again and again can produce value, and that value can often be quite self-fulfilling. So once you've done it for long enough, it starts to feed itself, and that creates its own sort of equity, which I think in the branding space is a huge advantage for people. And it's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. Hello YouTube, I'm Ross Drakes. I'm the founder of Nicework, and thank you so much for your time at watching this video. If you're seeing me, it means you made it all the way to the end, so we've at least done something right. If you enjoyed this, we'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up. It really helps the channel. And I think more important than that is, if you know someone who might need to hear this, if you think someone out there who needs this message in their life, please spread the link, because it makes a huge difference to the world, and it allows us to fulfill our message of making sure that there are no more bad brands in the world. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you in the next video.